You need someone to keep you up to date, but also tell you that everything's gonna be okay. It's America. You up?
Okay, welcome to America. You up? You may be noticing that our fearless leader Joan is not with us this morning. She texted me, and she's not so great with the texting, but I managed to figure out that she's not here. She did ask me to take over for her this morning. I hope that's okay, Perky. Normally your job.
Just fine, Brinley. That's just fine. You go right ahead.
Thanks. So, Brian, how was your weekend?
My weekend was lovely, thank you. I got to observe, finally as an audience member, the International Bagpipe Zydeco Festival out of Aberdeen, Oklahoma. I had covered that for Delaware Public Radio for 26 years, and now that I'm on here, I could just sit back and relax and enjoy it from the comfort of my own study.
That sounds amazing. The bagpipes are just the most soothing, wonderful sound on earth. Sally, I saw you were very active on your Instagram this weekend. What were you up to?
Doing all the wonderful fall things now that the weather's a little cooler. We went on a really nice hike. We went to a vineyard. We got local cheese. We took pictures with the cutouts. The basic fall fun things.
Fall is the most refreshing season. I just feel like everything comes alive in the fall. I mean, really things are dying, but at the same time, it's a celebration of where we've been and where we're going. Perky, how about you?
Well, I had a wonderful weekend. I also went on a hike, but I've been really getting into artisanal hiking. It's something, it's a new trend. Something where you go on really sort of off the beaten path, small batch trails. And I brought my cats, as I usually do, on their leashes. I've been leash training them, and they just love it. Sometimes they run in terror and hide, but usually they're little troopers, and they really just they're walking and sniffing and shrieking right there with me. So it's been a lovely weekend, and welcome to fall, everyone.
Perky, I gotta tell you, I think I saw you on the trails. My two girls, Clara and Annabelle, they were the kids pooping on the trail. And I saw your cats make a run for it, but I thought it was you. I thought that was you.
They were so terrified. They were just really scandalized by all that fecal matter, I've got to say.
7 and 9-year-olds
hiking by, yeah.
Bless their hearts.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, Brian, I was throwing to you. Go ahead.
No, Brinley, please, Brinley, you go ahead. I don't want to.
Okay.
I don't want to get a reputation like the last guy who was on here.
Oh yeah. Let's not talk about Josh. That's something we don't like to talk about. So my weekend was fascinating. I quarantined because that's the responsible thing to do. And I also made masks. I made about 85 masks for our first responders. And it was very important. And then I went to vote411.org and looked at my ballot. I figured out how to vote, where to vote. I made sure I was registered to vote, very responsible. I also noticed that there's a lot going on in this election right now. The POTUS thing is really heating up. There are new endorsements coming out. There's a primary coming up. Have you guys been following this?
Brinley Lee, I have to say, for such a young person, you are quite responsible. That just warms me. Kind of like I've got
been mostly following the race for my local alderman up to this point, but now that is over and we won't talk about what happened with the ballots out of Herdane County, I can finally focus on this presidential contest, which promises to be very interesting.
Yeah. So many interesting candidates. Cowboy Alligator.
Alligator Cowboy, I think. It's
Alligator Cowboy. Right. Thank you, Perky, for correcting me. You're always ready to correct me whenever I'm wrong.
I'm just trying to be helpful.
Yeah, you are. You're such a mentor. So
I
honored.
appreciate that. That makes me so, oh, that just warms my heart.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to think of what else Joan would do in this situation. Has anyone seen any new endorsements from the candidates that you are interested in discussing? I saw maybe that Pineapple had been endorsed by a plunger and a roll of toilet paper. That's fascinating.
I really like to think that makes Pineapple just a pineapple of the people, close to my heart. We're all doing these things around the house. We need reliable endorsements.
You know that Pac, as a gnome, was trying desperately to get the endorsement of both the Elvish Union and the Goblin Union. And this week, the elves came out for Pac, and it was pretty emotional because it's the first time that the elves have supported a gnome since the year 3, when Smortis supported, I forget his name, Plick. They all have these onomatopoetic names that sound like sounds when you drop things. So Snortis supported Plick in the race for the Celtic high priest.
I'll tell you what that reminds me of, Brian. My first kiss when I saw Lord of the Rings 2 in theaters. Not a great place, but here we are.
Well, I'm glad that we know where your first kiss happened, Sally. That's great information for all Americans.
You're welcome.
My first kiss was during a Ken Burns documentary festival.
Was it baseball? Civil War? Was it Civil War, Brian? It seems like it might have been Civil War.
No, it was Industrial Revolution, and it was right at the part where they were talking about the protests against the meatpacking abuses.
Very, very
just
sexy.
look at each other, like that's what you do when that comes up, is you just sort of look and say, like, how could meatpacking have started off from such a horrible place? And that was the connection.
That's amazing.
So romantic.
It makes me think of one of our candidates, the Cream family, the dairy farmers. They've been traveling around showing us their family. It's so sweet.
It really is. And, there's something about that heartland image that I think is very powerful in the Midwest and in a lot of swing states. I'm from Iowa myself. My family hails from Clinton, Iowa. It's a little town. It smells like a corn plant. And let me tell you, you have not lived until you have smelled a corn plant. It doesn't smell like corn. It just smells like some kind of strange industrial chemicals that you can't really define. And you just hope you're not getting cancer. And that's really the vibe that we're getting from the Cream family. And it's pure America is what it is.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then at the other end of the spectrum, we have this mysterious nobody. I really don't understand. I mean, I'm very tech savvy. I'm in that generation where this should make sense to me. And yet I'm like, who is nobody? And should I be voting for them? Is it them? I don't know their pronouns even. And that's disturbing to me.
Yes. Well, maybe we should investigate them on the next show. And meanwhile, on the question of endorsements, I know I've got a segment coming later with some of our young female candidates, especially our very young female candidates. Kaylee Girlbass has an interesting slate of endorsements recently from Bullets Across America, the League of Champion Princesses, also a freelance cryptocurrency UX graphics designer, the International Beef Council. It's an eclectic mix of endorsements, and it really speaks to a wide variety of ideological commitments and values. But it really, I think she can really reach a wide constituency. And so I don't know, who do you guys think has the broadest appeal so far in the field?
Well, I'll tell you, my two girls, 7 and 9-year-olds, they were kicked out of the league for not anything that bad. I mean, it was something about like belching in front of too many people and the lunch line. It was just not appropriate, but not that bad. And just kicked out of the league. So
It's hard for me to trust my instincts on stuff like this, but I understand a few months ago there was a sort of a gaming theory experiment at the University of Michigan at Wisconsin, where they ran some simulations to see what would be the most popular theoretical candidate in the universe. And word has it that they came out with Crocodile Rancher, which is not Alligator Cowboy, but boy, nobody else comes that close.
It's almost a combination of Richard Cream and an Alligator Cowboy and the husband of that very American husband of that very American candidate.
Anna Smith, right? Anna
Yes.
Smith. Yes.
Oh.
Very American.
Just as American as you could possibly be in the mother country.
Definitely. Well, it looks like it's time for us to move on to our next segment. Are we ready for some news stories for the week? A little NSFW?
I know I'm ready for some NSFW.
Perky, you're up to tell us all about how a French man says tattoo-covered face cost him his kindergarten teaching job.
Well, this story comes to us from Paris, where Jean-Luc Sen was a very well-regarded kindergarten teacher in the community, but he made a crucial mistake when on his face he got a tattoo of Barney. And it seemed like it might be an innocuous tattoo. You'd think that would fly with the kindergartners. But actually, the French find Barney to be very offensive. They think that he is insulting the intelligence of their children. And so as a result, poor Jean-Luc is no longer employed at his school. Jean-Luc said that he would like to see the French become more progressive on children's characters. And that's that story. Brian, how about this headline from you? We've got paradox-free time travel is theoretically possible, researchers say.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the headline? You broke up a little bit. I'm out by my fire pit.
Oh, yes. Paradox-free time travel is theoretically possible, researchers say.
Well, as everybody knows, one of the worst things about time travel is the inevitability of the paradox, which usually means something like if you go back in time and kill your own grandfather, are you dead? Or if you change the time stream and then go back to the place you were, are you still there? Or is there any possible way to jump from this time stream to the next and then back? And there's not really much logic to it at all because of the paradox. So paradox-free time travel is based on the idea that has long been used in science fiction, which is basically time travel is whatever the fuck you want it is, so shut up. And that, you can do whatever. And I think that that's a real breakthrough that they have just decided officially and scientifically to suspend all the rules of logic and narrative consistency. But Sally, I wanted to ask you about this new story that came out. Lavender sales are surging during the coronavirus pandemic.
Thanks, Brian. You know how I love to talk about lavender. So this story is coming to you straight from Los Poblanos Lavender Farm in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is where I got married, grew up across the street. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. And they have seen, believe it or not, that lavender helps calm your sympathetic system. Now that is your fight or flight system that gives you all that like anxiety, those jumpy nerves that keeps you up at night. The lavender just cools it off. I know it seems wild that such a good smelling thing can do so much for something so complex, but they've been growing lavender there for hundreds of years. Hundreds. Well, I might be lying a little bit. It used to be a dairy farm back in the day, and then it became a lavender farm once dairy went south, because that happens with cows, right? They don't live forever. But anyway, back to the lavender. They're really great at bottling it up, and they've been shipping it all over the country. so you can stay calm and carry on during the pandemic. All right. Let's see. Brinley Lee. This article intrigued me. Identical quantum particles pass the practicality test. Can you take us there?
You know, I haven't taken physics since college, but, you know, identical quantum particles was something I did write my senior thesis on, and it is a fascinating topic. So most people just think about single quantum particles, and a single quantum particle is very, very important. It's one of the building blocks of our entire molecular system. But twin particles were something that no one thought was possible. And I have to say that, you know, I was one of the first people, you know, in my undergrad thesis to suggest that they even existed. And so it's amazing that we're now seeing that they're not only potentially in existence, but they're not a paradox at all. You know, I'm going to have to call the researchers after. Was I cited in that paper, Sally? I'm sure I was. You know.
Yes, yeah. You were incredibly well cited.
Yes, yeah. So
conflict of interest? Oh, never mind.
It's not my headline. I didn't bring it up, Perky, but I do have the perfect headline for you. It's about rats. Hero Rat wins a top animal award for sniffing out landmines.
Oh, well, this is an incredible story about a little beautiful creature. His name is Squeaker, and Squeaker comes to us from Columbus, Ohio. And as many people do not know, that in Columbus there were still landmines left over from the Civil War somehow, and we're not really sure exactly how that happened. But this little Squeaker was out on the job sniffing for those mines, and there was a kindergarten class nearby, not the kindergarten class in Paris, mind you, but there was still a kindergarten class that came dangerously close to these mines until their class pet, whose name was Squeaker, actually just crept out ahead of them, and then his little nose went up in the air, and then he made a mighty squeak that made the entire class come to a halt. And then the teacher was able to figure out what his squeaks meant, because, you know, rats do have language. We just haven't quite learned how to decipher it. But this teacher was very adept with it. And the whole class was saved. And it was just an incredible, heroic moment. And this is what we love to see in America. And speaking of heroic animals, Brian, I'd love to hear from you about this pet dog saves man from being hit by a train.
Brian, sweetie, you're on mute, hon.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was just a lot of coyotes in the background at my fire pit. I bring my library to my fire pit whenever I go, because first of all, if I'm not watching the books, what if the fire gets them? But anyway, back to the dog that saved a man from a train, from being hit by a train. This happened in Columbus, South Dakota, just the other day, and the dog's name was Herman. Not really relevant, but you have to report names in all of these types of stories. And Herman saw that there was a train coming on the schedule. He looked online and he saw that there was a train scheduled to pass through town at exactly 6:35 p.m. His owner was about to go out to the store at around 5 o'clock. And apparently Herman knew that it is possible that if he took a shortcut home, he might have crossed over the train tracks at approximately 6:35. So Herman instead bit his owner's leg. He was rushed to the emergency room, and he is in stable condition, and he did not get hit by a train. But Brinley Lee, I thought that this might be sort of up your alley. I was reading this deep dive on BuzzFeed about how to find a company that barely even exists.
How to oh, well, I mean, that's right up my alley. As you know, I am, one of the, I basically do all of the online research for this show. So, companies that barely exist are one of my specialties. And during the pandemic, I mean, unfortunately, companies that barely exist are becoming more and more prevalent. you know, that, and BuzzFeed obviously might be one of those, unfortunately. So finding companies that barely exist. The other day I was trying to find, I had heard about a pop-up artisanal, actually it was our artisanal hiking company, getting back to our banter earlier today, Perky. I wanted to do some artisanal hiking. And I'd heard about a pop-up where you could go and get information about where to hike. And you know, the pop-up, being a pop-up, was really only a guy standing under a tree. You know, it barely existed. And you had to be there between, I think it was 1 and 1:20 p.m. on Wednesday. This guy, his name's Chad. You find him there, and he will give you a map to go on an artisanal hike, and you have a unique map. No one else has that map. Sounds like, Perky, you were, you know, you ran into Sally, you were on some, you know, regular path, but I went on a very special hike where, you know, only I had ever been given that path, and it was amazing. So to wrap things up, Sally, I've got kind of a sad story for you. Romanian mayor wins landslide re-election 2 weeks after death.
Thank you, Brinley Lee. So coming to you from Romania, this is the first thing that's ever happened in history, a posthumous win in an election. But that just goes to show you who the competition was. The competition is quoted as being a turtle, a Romanian turtle that was so slow to make decisions, people thought a corpse would get potholes fixed faster than a turtle. So Romania is now stuck with a corpse mayor. Thank you, everybody, for explaining those headlines and taking us through the week. In just a short bit, we'll be back with some exclusive and special interviews with our candidates and maybe a couple other surprises.
Welcome back. This is Perky Chirps with a special report for America, You Up? In this year's crowded presidential primary, one trend stands out: a surprising number of youth candidates, thanks to the recent constitutional amendment eliminating the age restriction on the presidency. 2 of those candidates are competing for the nomination of the Scissors Party: Kaylee Girlbaus, a 9-year-old student council leader who loves birds and karate, and Brina Leanne Berkeley, a toddler beauty pageant champion who loves McDonald's and Skittles. I spoke with representatives of both campaigns to learn more. Hi, are you enjoying that 7-Up? What is that, 7-Up?
No, it's
Mountain Dew.
Mountain Dew.
That is Code Red Mountain Dew. Oh my goodness.
Code Red. Wow, 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 wow.
That is definitely how an alarm goes when you're having an emergency. Now, am I pronouncing your name right, Brenna, or is it Brina?
Yeah, my mama named me Brina, and she wanted to have it with 5 E's because also a star has 5 points, and I'm a star too.
Oh.
My daddy, he didn't like it. So then, you know, my mom divorced him, and that's what happens.
Well, it certainly is what happens. And, you know, we all have challenges that we have to go through in life. So Brina, tell me, how's the campaign going? How's the campaign trail? How are you handling the stresses? I see you're stress eating a lot of Skittles.
I'm not stress eating. This is normally how I start my morning.
Oh, I see.
Brina Leanne Berkeley is a winner, and winners get candy and as much soda as they want.
I see. Is that going to be one of your policies as president?
A woman never tells her secrets.
Now, is it fair to the American people to have secrets about what you'll do when you're president? I also spoke with the policy director for the Kaylee Girlbaus campaign, Ari Valdez Schwartz. Ari gave me an update on how Kaylee is doing in school and some of the issues she's focusing on in her campaign. Ari Valdez Schwartz, welcome. Thanks so much for coming on You Up.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great talking to you, Perky.
Yeah, and Ari is the policy director for the campaign of Kaylee Girlbouse. And I just want to ask you, Ari, how's Kaylee doing? How's she handling school? How's she handling life? How's she handling the stresses of the campaign trail?
You know what? Kaylee has never been better. She just got an A in her, or sorry, they don't do A's yet. She just got a perfect score on her math test, and she's doing great at spelling. And also, she's after hours, she's taken time to get on the campaign and really figure out what issues the Americans really want addressed. So her number one issue is making America prosperous, making sure America has a prosperous future. And her number one policy position is double Christmas, as you may have heard.
Double Christmas. Why Christmas, not other holidays? Why not double Hanukkah?
Well, actually, the second Christmas is non-denominational. It's going to be called Super Presents Day, named by Kaylee, and it'll be the same week as 4th of July. So it'll be about celebrating American values of all faiths and people that celebrate here. We'll stimulate the economy and provide extra time off for people to spend with their families. It's a win-win for everyone.
That certainly sounds like a win-win. What an impressive, very ambitious initiative for a 9-year-old. Kaylee's 9, right?
That's right.
Oh my goodness, what talent, what just drive and ambition. Brina discussed her positions on education and food policy. What about education? What do you think we should do for education in this country to give everyone a fair shot?
I know that I learn best when there's candy at the end of it. So really, I think it's about incentives, and I think it's about like if you do well and you win at a pageant, then you get to go to McDonald's. And yeah, it's easy for me to win, but I like going to McDonald's.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that what's your position on corporate policy? So should McDonald's perhaps be given tax breaks, or how should we manage the McDonald's in our country? Oh goodness, you sort of missed there.
Oh yeah. Hey, do you know how many I could stick in my mouth at once? You want to see? I don't know what the answer is.
I don't know what the answer is either. Careful there, honey. You don't want to choke. Oh God. Okay. Is your mother here?
Oh. I'm probably getting coffee. I don't know if I ever knew. It's like, wow, don't talk to me till I have my coffee, Brina. Brina, you have a voice on you like your dad. If I wanted your dad around, I wouldn't have divorced him.
Ari explained what got Kaylee into politics as a young female leader and some of her key qualifications. Tell me, what got Kaylee into politics? What inspired her to be a young female leader?
Well, she was elected to student council in the first grade, younger than any other student at her elementary school. And ever since then, she's had a taste for asking people what they need and living a life of providing service. She's got such accomplishments under her belt as the reform of recess at her local elementary school. They now have recesses broken up throughout the day so that the kids get more recess hours and a larger number of recess breaks total throughout the day. Productivity is way up because when people have breaks, they just work better and have more fun.
It's fascinating. That's very ambitious. Again, how does she plan to balance the extra recess time with the learning time for the serious subjects?
Well, it turns out that if you have proper support in recess, you can do just as much learning out on the playground as you can in the classroom.
Oh, well, that's very wise. We really need to teach our children to learn from experience, and I definitely believe that. Brina had a different take on the idea of recess reform. What's your position on recess? Do you think that we should have more recess? And if so, what should that look like? How do we balance that with the challenges of learning?
Oh my God, recess! Like That's for like older kids. That's like for kids who go to school. I don't go to school because I'm like not an old maid, you know?
An old maid. So would you consider a 9-year-old, for instance, Kaylee Girlbouse is also your fellow candidate in the Scissors Party. This is going to be a very intense primary between the two of you. So do you think a 9-year-old is too old to be president?
Yeah, she like probably reads at like a 4th grade level. That's like old.
Ari also had some thoughts on the difference between having a 9-year-old and a toddler in the White House. I'm wondering how you feel about Kaylee's positions versus Brenna's, and also about a 9-year-old versus a toddler in the White House. What would those differences be like?
Well, I think the differences are fairly obvious. There's some developmental differences between 3 or 4 and 9.
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
One of which is object permanence. Another of which is the ability to put yourself in other folks' shoes.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Seafood.
Brina also gave me some of her thoughts on fairness and social justice.
Sometimes things just aren't fair. Like sometimes you have little brothers. Are little brothers fair? Like, no, they're not fair. You know? They take their Barbies and they rip the heads off when you go to play with your scooter sometimes. So I think maybe it's not so much about fair, it's about like justice. I think you can get even and you can steal all of his cards and burn them in a trash fire.
So getting even with your little brother, so your idea of social justice is getting rid of little brothers, is that right?
Duh.
Well, then that would give you something in common with another candidate who's in the Rock Party. Her name's Amy Rocketship. She's also a young woman. Some say she might actually be a child or perhaps 2 children in a trench coat. No one's really sure. But she also has a very strong anti-little brother policy. So is that one of your campaign platforms, that we should just get rid of little brothers?
I don't know if like we should like get rid of all of them, but we can definitely just like put them somewhere else.
Sure. Okay.
Like I had a hamster and then that hamster just got placed somewhere else. So
somewhere else.
Put things other places.
Well, yeah, that's definitely what happens in life sometimes. So I wonder, what is Kaylee's position on little brothers?
Well, Kaylee doesn't have a little brother, but has an older sister. Kaylee is in support of all children getting involved at all levels of government. So that's there's some daylight between us and the Rock Party there. We don't believe in cutting out some portion of the population and deciding they're not American. We're a big tent here at the Girlbouse campaign.
Both campaigns also addressed some controversial issues and explained why the time is now to elect our nation's first child president. Now, I do have to ask you about something a little bit sensitive. Recently on the program, The Voice of Reason, there was a bit of a contentious exchange between the anchor on that program and Kaylee's mother, Crystal. And many are saying that Crystal is actually a helicopter mom, that Crystal's really going to be the one making the decisions, and that Kaylee is just kind of a prop. What's your response to that? Who's really going to be running the White House, Kaylee or her mom?
Well, I think this is a misperception in every presidential administration. First off, no president runs the country alone. Kaylee will have a team of qualified, experienced policymakers trying to find the most reasonable way to make her vision a reality and communicate it to the American people. So to say that anything is just the candidate is going to be false in every campaign. But at the same time, this characterization as Kaylee's mother is pulling all the strings, running everything, absolutely false. Kaylee always wants everyone in the room, wants a big team. She loves being the center of attention, and we love to give her that attention. So if she has a big radical policy idea, we sift through white papers till we get something that can support that. We dig into the details and figure out how we can make that big, bold idea a reality. So Kaylee is really running the show here.
what are you like reading at a 5th grade level?
A little bit more than that. I do have a college degree.
Oh my God. So you're like a grandma.
Well, not quite yet. I haven't even met that special someone yet. So, still working on that. What did you say?
What are you waiting for?
I'm just waiting for someone who won't leave me. But enough about me. This is really about you, Brina. This is about your path to the White House and your truth and your powerful message in your campaign. So what is the main message that you want the American people to come away with? Why should they vote for you?
Because I want it, and I get what I want. I want it. So give it to me because I want it. I want it.
In the end, the voters will be the ones to decide. I'm Perky Chirps reporting for America. You up?
It's always such a pleasure spending my morning with you guys.
What a way to start the day.
I know I like being up with America.
Every morning I wake up and I'm like, America, you up? And then I get to come and find out that we are up.
We certainly are.
I love being able to sleep in, actually, because my program on public radio was aired at 3 a.m. And so I used to have to get up at 1 a.m., which sometimes I would just stay up till 1 a.m. I wasn't really sure whether I was getting up or going to bed, or it was one day or the next. So this is refreshingly very clearly in the morning of a particular day.
We're so glad to have you, Brian. You are our 12th male host in the last 16 months, and it's just been a joy.
I was surprised to get the call from the producers, but they said that they had been through, as they explained it, everyone else, and I was the first and most famous safe option. So I hope to continue to be that.
We love you all.
America, just like Brian, you up? See you tomorrow.